Hey everybody, I just want to give you a quick spinal cord review. This is just a virtual review. It's not all inclusive, it's just a couple of concepts that I want to make sure you understand. As far as your spinal cord injury, you want to think that it's a cord compression, a bone displacement, interruption of blood supply, penetrating trauma, or traction, any of that. Pulling on the cord can cause damage, right? So you have your primary injury, which is your initial disruption, right? Something happened. Either you had an initial gunshot wound or motor vehicle crash. So you had an initial injury, that's your primary. It's when you get hurt, and then your secondary injury is your response to the hurt. We talked about there's several theories out there, but your secondary is your response to the hurt, the swelling and all that occurs. You classify it in three ways. You want to classify your mechanism of injury. How did it happen? Flexion, rotation, compression, flexion, all those different ways. Then your level of injury, which bone, and which neurological, lowest neurological point that you can have motor function on both sides. So that would be part of your level of injury. And then your degree of injury, it can be complete or incomplete. Was the spinal cord completely severed? Is there a complete loss, below the level of injury? Or is there incomplete? Is it mixed? Is there some voluntary motor activity on one side? So those are just a quick review. And you cannot forget about your dermatomes. You see the little guy on the right here. Dermatomes go throughout the whole body, and just remember that it's just a bilateral region of skin that's innervated by pairs of spinal nerves. And you might think, oh well, the patient's injured at C6, that's there in their neck, but no, you see it goes all the way down the arm. So that's what the dermatomes, they kind of innervated throughout the body. So you want to think ABCs, you want to think spine stabilization, consider what the spine does. There's nerves, neurons, ligaments, bones, all involved in this small space. Edema and swelling can definitely affect the spine. And all body systems could potentially be affected. Keep that in mind as well. You want to consider if it's greater than C4, they definitely might not be able to breathe, so they might be on a vent. So I kind of highlighted those vertebrae. And then greater than T6, you've got all kinds of problems that could occur, because that's when you get not only do you have the secondary response, you have these secondary to the dermatomes, but respiratory issues, nerves involved, think possible even neurogenic shock. They're more prone also, greater than T6, for autonomic dysreflexia, because you've got that signal loss, right? The sympathetic nervous system, and loss of the vasomotor tone. So definitely, be aware. Higher risk injuries also are at risk for poikilothermism. So that's also a problem, and that's the inability of the body to shiver. So you got to think about, you may have to keep, regulate their environment. They may need blankets, or they may need to have blankets taken off. But it's just the inability to sweat or shiver below the level of injury. Again, so keep that in mind. There's, that's usually your first sign. It could be increased blood pressure. So, you you go into the patient's room and they're diaphoretic, and you automatically should take their blood pressure, see what's going on with them. Know the difference between neurogenic shock and spinal shock. Neurogenic shock is due to the loss of vasomotor tone. It's usually a cervical or high thoracic, T6 or greater. But that's an emergency, because their blood pressure will bottom out. Because you got to think the blood is just kind of venous pooling, right? It's just kind of pooling in their pipes. So you're gonna have decreased venous return, decreased preload, decreased stroke volume, decreased cardiac output with neurogenic shock. So your telltale sign with that is your bradycardia and hypotension. So just remember that. As far as spinal shock goes, that's just usually, it can be days to months, and it's just the disruption in the neurons, and sometimes secondary to swelling, but you've got a loss of sensation, reflexes below the level of injury with your spinal shock. So neurogenic shock can be a subset, or it can be a complication. So just keep in mind that you're looking for the blood pressure and your bradycardia. Also keep in mind, like I said, you want to, with your autonomic dysreflexia, you want to make sure that you're monitoring your patient for hypertension, and there's some type of stimulus that's causing it. So, majority of the time they just need to have their bladder capped. But it could be something else. It could be something that is, stimulating, constricting their leg or something like that. So keep that in mind. And that's all I'm going to go over. It's just, like I said, a quick little review. You want to make sure you know your levels of injury. So review those. Make sure you understand the different ones here. And don't forget about your dermatomes and how they affect the body, how they affect the spine. And that is all I got for you. Like I said, it's quick, it's short, just little snippets to kind of help you. And I will see you soon.